Hey y'all, it's KBR Sports, the best sports talk show of your 24-hour day. I'm your host, Brendan Abbott, and my two co-hosts. My co-host to my left, Rashad Pennell. My co-host to my right, Khalid Lewis. We're broadcasting on the WODU Live YouTube channel, the best in college radio. Um, we're back from a long winter break, long needed winter break. How did y'all enjoy y'all break? Rashad, how did break treat you?
Man, I wasn't even a break. That's all I gotta say.
Khalid?
It was short. Could have been better, but hey, it was a break.
Right. It was well needed. It was well needed. But we're gonna get right into it. The topics. We're end up talking about the Alabama and Clemson game. What a thriller that game was. It legit came down to the last minute in the fourth quarter. And that game was just like back and forth the whole time. Momentum was either going in Clemson's way, Alabama's way. But yeah, we'll get into that. We'll also get into talking about the NBA and Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors, talking about if who's better, the Warriors or the San Antonio Spurs, and then also talk about if Steph Curry as a basketball player and the Warriors as a whole have actually hurt the game of basketball. And then we'll get into the Vontaze Burfict suspension after the hit he placed on Antonio Brown, and then we'll also talk about who do you guys put more blame on, Blair Walsh for missing the field goal in the Vikings game, or Adrian Peterson for fumbling the ball when they were still on Seattle's or their own side of the field and gave Seattle a short field to work with, which allowed Seattle to go and make the game time or the game winning field goal. We'll get into that, and then we'll also do some NFL predictions. We also might visit the topic of the Rams relocation very briefly, since that's like the hot topic of the sports world at the moment. With everybody talking about how now Los Angeles has its first sports team in over 20 years. So we'll also get into that. But first things first, we'll start talking about the Alabama and Clemson game. Alabama won this game 45-40. It was a game that legit came down to the wire with neither team really like dominating the other. Like there was no point in time you're like, oh, Alabama can't win, or there was no time you're like Clemson can't win. It was just a game that it all was just momentum going one way or the other. You never really knew who had the edge on the other. So let me hear what y'all think about the game and what y'all thoughts were on it, and just the players and the possible NFL prospects we saw in that game, like Derrick Henry, Deshaun Watson, who can't declare for the draft this year since he's a sophomore, but next year would be eligible. So what do y'all think about players like that and just how the game was? Khalid, let's start off with you. What did you think?
I think the game was a very heated game. It was, like you said, definitely came down to the last moments. And basically the fourth quarter was like the defining quarter for the whole game, where Alabama scored 24 points and Clemson scored 16. So I think in that time, I guess that's when they was really into it. And that's when the heat of the game really like built up. It was definitely a great game. Everybody played the best they could play. Nick Saban got him another championship, so congrats to him. And I mean, it was a great championship. Basically, it was definitely a great game that I need to watch.
All right, Rashad, what do you think?
Watching the game, you get to see a lot of star power out there on the field. Actually, last NFL prospects, like you said, you saw some great offensive threats. We actually saw an Alabama line got exposed in the game, giving up tremendous amount of sacks, especially in the early part of the game. I feel like Clemson had that game in control until the turning point when the onside kick came.
Oh yeah,
and basically the pooch kick, and it went right over shoulder, and basically in perfect position for Alabama to retrieve. And after that, you can slowly see momentum shift into Alabama taking control of the game. And I gotta compliment Watson on those passes he made. He made some NFL type passes in that game.
I was calling him Brett Favre all game.
I was scared. He made some Brett Favre passes all game. I mean, those were some tight windows. Those were some tight windows he was throwing. But a lot of his over the top passes, yes, they had some air on them, but they was right where they needed to be at.
Mm-hmm.
But you gotta understand that Alabama's cornerbacks aren't no lackey daisy corners. They actually make plays and coverage. But some of those the receivers got to catch. A lot of those plays would have resulted in touchdowns. So you never know what would have happened if the receivers was actually, a little tougher on those plays when the jump ball and balls in the air, anything like that.
Yeah.
We've seen Watson make a lot of plays with his feet to actually save drives, get them to score. We saw what happens when you can't stop Derrick Henry on the first contact when he gets going past the line.
Man.
But we see also happens when you can hit him in the first person can hit him.
Remember that stat they said when we were watching? They said when he gets past the line of scrimmage untouched, he averages 8 yards a carry.
Yeah.
And on the season, the boy averages 6.2 yards a carry.
Yep.
So it's like, what? But yeah, go on what you're saying. This is crazy. This is wild to me.
But yeah, after when you see what happens when you stop him at the back, first contact actually brings him down.
Mm-hmm.
How ineffective that offense can actually be. But once he gets going, because if you look at it, a lot of that game went down with quarterback making more plays and Derrick Henry actually making more plays. Other than that first touchdown where I was just like, oh, Clemson in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But then they adjusted, kind of contained Derrick Henry and what he was doing. But overall, Clemson had that game in that control until the onside kick.
So, okay, I have a question for you because I think you said there was a point in time you said where Alabama's line was exposed. Do you think it was more so Jake Coker holding onto the ball too long, or also was it just Alabama's like the defensive linemen for Clemson were penetrating on Alabama's offensive line?
Well, I can't sit here and say every play was holding him for 5 seconds. I know that during the game they put up the clock timer for him. Mm-hmm. And a lot of his holds were 5 seconds. But you gotta think about how you gotta commend how good that secondary is actually playing to make him hold the ball that long. Because that means all the receivers are covered and he's just choosing not to go to his check down routes. So at the end of the day, they still kept getting sacks. So
go ahead.
You can a lot of quarterbacks can throw the ball away and anything like that, but he's still trying to find a target. So not every play was 5 seconds. A lot of plays were quick sacks as well.
So what about the play? Because I feel like we at home are watching on TV. So I'm like, I feel like if everybody's commenting on the fact that he's holding on to the ball too long or something like that, then he does have to have somebody open. If you're holding on to the ball, I can't believe because bro, he held on to the ball a lot for way too long. At least in the first half, he did. And then you think about it, he didn't have that great of a game. If you take out those 2 big plays by OJ Howard, this game was all right. OJ Howard had over 200 some yards receiving as the tight end. And it's just like,
So who can you sit here and say won in the game though? Then you see what I'm saying?
The coaching.
Well,
yeah.
We can't sit here and say Dabo did an awful job at coaching.
No, I'm not saying Dabo did an awful job at coaching.
Lane Kiffin had a great game plan for the offensive, and I don't know who the special teams coach is, but that was a great call on their part.
I'm not saying that Lane Kiffin did a bad job of coaching, but Dabo Swinney did a bad job of coaching. But my case in point is, I understand that your number 1 receiver got hurt before the season. Your number 2 receiver got hurt in like week 3 of the season. So technically all you had was Deshaun Watson. But it's just, to me, it's just like the fact of the matter is, like, they had Jake Coker, who, like, he got benched earlier in the season. Like, what was it was it in the Ole Miss game? I think it was the Ole Miss game. He got benched. And you sit there and you're just like, man, this dude, like, everybody was talking about it. This guy's come back. He deserved this moment. He went to schools, was a bench player on other schools, transferred to Alabama, was supposed to be fighting for the job with Blake Sims and all this stuff, or he was behind Blake Sims and all this. And then, like, you're just like, man, like, this man has been through a lot. But then you see the game, and the whole first half, there were times I was like, man, Jake. He would honestly be sitting in the pocket. You remember how you saw how Deshaun Watson would be in the pocket, right? And Alabama's line is coming after this man. After about 2 seconds, he just sat there. And once nobody got open into those initial routes, he was like, I'm out. Deshaun Watson is also a better athlete than Jake.
That's the difference. That's kind of like
it's a difference. But we saw what Jake did when on that pivotal play in the fourth quarter when he got that he scrambled it and when they were in the red zone. And he nobody was open, and he made one of the linemen miss. It was the defensive end that was like sacking this man the whole game, and he made him miss and got the first down. So he showed he can scramble.
I mean, that's just come on now. I can't.
I'm
Really
just
say
saying.
I'm
not calling.
I mean, he got the first down apparently.
Yeah, you know
I
what I'm
wouldn't
saying?
have him in the NFL scrambling. You know
No. I mean,
Nah,
come
nah,
on.
nah, nah.
We're talking about college here. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna have that kid running around and he'll get murdered. Like that's as a coach, if you have Jay Coker running around, like that's just a death sentence.
When he made that,
Yeah, that's you're asking him to get hurt.
When
Like
he made that play, his eyes were like this. Oh no.
yeah,
Just move. That's exactly what he did.
It's like
And he made
It worked out for him.
He made a great play.
think about this, okay? He had 335 yards passing. OJ Howard had 208 of those yards, and then two of those receptions were for 59 yards and 53 yards. So
that's half of it.
That's like half of his passing. That's a third of his passing yards. And then Derrick Henry, 36 rushing attempts for 158 yards. So he averaged 4.4 yards a carry. Most of that came in the first half. So the second half, that man was honestly struggling. He averaged like 2.4 yards a carry in the second half. Yeah, it was so rough for him. But like you said, I agree with you. The onside kick is where like
changed the moment.
Yeah, because
Clemson was up by 2 scores, and then Alabama scored, and then
they went onside kick.
There we go.
It was honestly because not been like everybody lose back to the Super Bowl when Sean Payton did it at the halftime. There's a difference between doing it at halftime and in the beginning of the fourth quarter. Halftime, you're like, all right, if I effed up, we got time to come back. You know what I'm saying? We got a whole 2 quarters to play. Fourth quarter, you don't get the onside kick. It was like 10 minutes left. Yeah. So you're sitting there, you're like, dang, we can't stop. They weren't stopping Deshaun Watson. You couldn't stop him. I mean, there's one guy to stop. You couldn't stop that one guy. And the whole team coming into the game talking about it was how Alabama's defense is prone to giving up big plays. So you come in, you can't stop this one dude from just torching you, like whether it's running, passing, hoopla. You know what I'm saying? The man had a combined 478 yards of total offense. It's a national championship game record, which even breaks Vince Young's record of 467 from the Texas and USC game, which a lot of people would talk about. Yeah, that was a great game. Reggie Bush. You got
my man Reggie.
Mark Sanchez. Mark Sanchez at his prime. Man, he's missing the college years. But that game was a great game. That's the game that a lot of people were comparing this game to. So you look at that and you're just like, man. You're sitting there thinking this dude literally put Clemson on his back, did everything he could. But if you take away that onside kick, the game's 24-24 at the point in time, and then Alabama goes down and scores and makes it 31-24. You take away that onside kick and Deshaun Watson goes and scores, and if they don't get the onside kick, you give him half a field to work with. So, I mean, you can only imagine he was either going to get a field goal or some kind of score. I mean, that just changes the whole complexion of the game.
And that was a 5-point difference, though.
Yeah, it was a big swing. And I also believe that play when he threw the ball to one of his receivers in the corner of the end zone, and the dude had caught it,
and
but
dropped it.
Yeah, and then
the dude's knee hit it.
Yeah, Alabama receiver dislodged it, and it was like if you catch that ball, there's so many plays. That's when you know it's a great game, when you can go back to so many different plays and be like, this affected the game, this affected the game, this affected the game. That's when you know you watched a great game. But in totality, this game was. It gives Nick Saban his 5th championship, fourth championship in 7 years. That's crazy. You know what I mean? Like that President Obama has seen this man 4 times during his presidency. That's a lot of times, man. I'm just saying. Like, imagine that. Like Obama's like, man, you here again, bro. How's it feel? He's like, I gotta go recruit next week. You know what I mean? It's crazy. You know what I'm saying? So, and the only person that has more championships than Nick Saban at this point is Bear Bryant with 6. And all right, real quick, just let me know what do y'all think? Do y'all consider Nick Saban? Because a lot of people talk about, because back then the whole championship structure was different with championship teams, which team got selected to go to the college or the playoffs. Technically now we don't even really have a postseason in college football if you think about it. Like NBA, NFL, NCAA basketball, when you're going into the postseason. College football, you don't really.
It was always 1 and 2.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? You just went 1 and 2. You never really had that postseason. You never were like, we're in the postseason of college football now. It just was like, we're playing, college football championships. Or then you go to your different bowls or whatever. You go to your different bowls, whatever bowl you got selected to, you would play in depending on how they ranked you. So how do y'all see Nick Saban with him in comparison with Bear Bryant as far as, and this is another great testament to Nick Saban because his championships didn't only come in Alabama. He won his first one at LSU. So, that also shows how great he is because he's done it somewhere else. Not like it was just with the Alabama organization. And to all those who don't know, when Nick Saban first came to Alabama, they sucked. Like Alabama was rough. But then he came, he changed the whole culture of the place. So how do y'all see how him in comparison to Bear Bryant, like where he ranks in comparison to Bear Bryant? Rashad, let me hear what you think first.
See, when you think of somebody like, this is basically like one of the greatest coaches of all time, what you're trying to say, right?
Yeah, essentially.
See,
yeah.
what he's done is phenomenal. Like winning, he's consistently winning championships. He's consistent. He has nothing
always
but
has his team there.
He's all his team is he's nothing but a winner.
Yeah.
But the only thing that concerns me with Nick Saban is when his players go to the league, I don't feel most of them are NFL ready, NFL talent. Because most of his see, that's where it's confusing to me, because you have a lot of great players coming out of Alabama that have decent careers, but then you have a lot of those players who we thought was going to be great to be washed up.
I think that's primarily the quarterbacks.
Not even the quarterbacks.
I mean, think about it.
There's a lot of defensive players that came out too that's not lived up to the hype that we thought, because how great they were in Alabama. There's also been the running backs. There's also been the quarterbacks. Only person coming to my head right now I think of who's played very well from Alabama is Amari Cooper.
Mark Ingram.
All right. I said very well.
I'm just saying. I mean, Mark Ingram's been, he has.
And if you think about it, every running back who came after him, Mark Ingram was what the standard is right now. That's kind of like the David Garrard holding the record in Jacksonville that went on broke. That's kind of what that's kind of how that is.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
And so right now, the first person on my head I can think of right now is Amari Cooper, who actually play very well.
But AJ McCarron has been playing all right. I mean, if it wasn't for he almost had the Bengals in position to win a championship. I mean, or not
to win the playoff game.
If it isn't for Jerry Hill fumbling the ball away and Vontaze Burfict and Adam Pac-Man Jones.
But I mean, can we really say that AJ McCarron is?
No, I'm not. I'm just giving you a player that he's actually played well
this season,
pretty well this season when he's given the chance to play.
But that's the thing. He had to be you expect these players to come out of college already having that opportunity.
I can't hold that against Nick Saban, because then how can we know what players Bear Bryant made that went to the NFL? And then to me, it's about.
But that's what I'm looking at now, because if you think about college basketball players, when they come out, think about people who come out like Duke. A lot of them are ready.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. That's how I'm trying to compare.
The game of basketball is different from football, and it's definitely less intense than.
But you're still taught to be, you're still taught to play the game and understand the game and how to actually be better.
Yeah, of course.
It's not just about winning. Trust me, Nick Saban's not all about winning. He's all about developing his players too. You know what I'm saying? So, he is a great coach, but
because to me, I feel like of course, every coach wants to develop their players ahead of most coaches. Most coaches want to develop their players ahead of winning, but the fact that I can't, because the fact that he has those players performing at such a high level while they're there, and it's always been a winning situation since he's been there. I'm just like, man, he's never. I keep saying I need to stop saying but he's never had a down, year. Every year we talk about Alabama either being the favorite or being number 2. This is the first year I think Alabama was actually considered an underdog. And that was after the loss to Ole Miss. Everybody was counting Alabama out and everything like that. But then after they just go on this run, and their defense, their front seven is one of the best front sevens of all time. When you look at the numbers, and then you're just like, man, this dude he knows how to recruit really well. 2, he knows how to keep players focused. And 3, he always makes sure they don't lose sight of that focus. They always keep that drive, because he finds whatever use of motivation to keep his players driven. But I mean, I see. That's the thing. We're so young, we can only talk about Bear Bryant and to such an extent. Whereas you have a broadcaster that's been there for
20 years.
There's some broadcasters that be 70 years old, man. And this man Bear Bryant, he retired in 1983. So you have broadcasters that cover that man back throughout his whole tenure, and they're now covering Nick Saban. So those are really the people that really can go in depth. But from I go back and I research, I believe now it's harder to keep up this level of greatness. So, you know what I mean? It's kind of like when you it's kind of like from adding more teams in, like with the NBA and NFL, you add more teams in, so it's a deeper pool of teams that can go. I feel like with the way the college system has changed to with Nick Saban now, it's more difficult than it was to win with Bear Bryant. But you always have those old school people that always be like, no, Bear Bryant was the greatest. Bear Bryant was great because at that point in time, Bear Bryant was supposedly mystical. Like you said something bad about Bear Bryant, shame on you. You know what I mean? It was like that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Colin, what do you think? Real quick, let me know what you think.
I think it is definitely a good testament to Nick Saban, the fact that he's been to the championship and like 4 to 5 times and won 5 championships and been there 4 times in 7 years. And I think that developing his players, like Rashad was saying, I mean, he chooses some good players and then there are some duds. But I mean, Nick Saban's doing what he does. He definitely does the great. I mean, he coaches a very great games. And like you said, he's coached on different teams. So it's not just the team that he had. So I do think that his coaching ability is one of the greatest. He just doesn't have as many championships as whatchamacallit.
Right. So what about people like Urban Meyer or something like that, who's won championships with multiple teams?
See, I would keep us on here, but we have to go into the next topic. We gonna run out of time for the rest of our topics. But for all those who want to call in to join in on our debate about Nick Saban and Bear Bryant and the college athletes in general, you can call in at 757-683-4405. It's a little echo with the phone when you call it, but make it work. But going on to the next topic, we're gonna go on to the also I forgot to put out this disclaimer at the beginning of the show. But we now air on Mondays and Wednesdays from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. instead of Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. because now we have to, new schedule, new semester, new schedule, new times. Gotta adjust, people. We gotta adjust. But